Good afternoon, Lynette Oxley here for Tax Shack Tactical TV. Welcome to all of our viewers. We've got Paul Oxley here, chairperson for the Gun Owners South Africa. Welcome, Paul, and how are you doing today?
Afternoon, Lynette. Yeah, fine. Yes, where do we go from here?
Updates on what's happening this week. It's been some interesting one.
Absolutely, yeah. You think you've seen it all, and then you have a week like this week. Okay, but all good actually. We, what was most important, the most important thing probably that happened this week is once again, and it's not that I'm happy about it or relishing this, but once again, the SAP has managed to show us why they should have nothing at all to do with firearms licensing in general, but in any case, probably with firearms. Yesterday we were alerted to an East Rand police station that had just taken a man into custody for a trio crimes offence with an amnesty firearm. This is our nightmare. Our nightmare is that amnesty firearms end up back on the streets. One of the reasons for the poor uptake in the amnesties thus far has been that people are afraid to hand their firearms to SAPs because SAPs, through fair means, well, they're all foul means, but through one way or another, end up supplying the firearms back to the gangsters, back to the criminals, back to the street. So we had again confirmation of this yesterday. As at the same time, we have a rather disturbing story coming out of that perennial offending station, Norwood. Wow. So over the weekend, the Norwood 13 store. Now, a 13 store at a police station is where the police store all of the evidence. So, for example, we were speaking about amnesty. So, for example, amnesty firearms were taken in by the 13 store clerk at all of the police stations throughout the country. So, the 13 store clerk is very important in the functioning of a police station, and he works hand in glove specifically with firearms. He works hand in glove with the DFOs at the station. So all of the amnesty firearms are handed into the 13 store. From the 13 store, various things happen with them. They either keep them for evidentiary purposes, or they send them for destruction, or they send them for ballistic testing, and etc., etc. But the 13 store clerk is central to this whole process. And the 13 store clerk at Norwood, a sergeant, committed suicide over the weekend. And our investigations and our sources tell us that he was criminally charged, the week before. So over the weekend he checked himself into a hotel or a motel, I'm not quite clear on that, and committed suicide rather than face the investigation. The investigation that's coming out of that is proving to be quite interesting. The reason he was arrested in June in Moinoi, 2 firearms were recovered from a cash-in-transit robbery. Those 2 firearms were traced back to Norwood Police Station, to Norwood's 13 store. In Brakpan 2 weeks ago, there was a firefight between the police and a gang of robbers, and 2 more firearms were discovered in Brakpan that were supposed to be in the 13 store at Norwood.
So that's 4 firearms so far.
That's 4.
Okay.
However, there's more. It turns out those 4 firearms were part of a batch of 120 firearms that were in the Norwood 13 store, and that was sent for ballistic testing, and they came back from ballistic testing, and they were popped back into the 13 store at Norwood. Now that
Or
doesn't
not.
sound, yeah, or not. Now that doesn't sound particularly incriminating or odd until you find out why they talk about a batch of 120 firearms. Why not the firearms from the amnesty, or the firearms from this case or that case? Turns out that in 2014, 7 years ago, Norwood's 13 store was again in the news. At that stage, the police discovered what they termed at the time a criminal armory in the house next door to Norwood police station. And
If it was not so serious, it would be funny.
you know, I'm sorry, I'm smiling and I'm jovial about it, but it's
Disgusting.
you can't script this stuff. So at what had happened at the time, there was a Ukrainian couple that were renting the house, but they didn't apparently know what was going on in the house. I'm not quite certain what the whole story is. I suspect that that's about to come out in the media. In fact, I know that's about to come out in the media. It was being used as an armory for criminals. They were sourcing the firearms from the Norwood police station and sanitizing them at the house, and they were storing them there, and criminals would come and buy or book out firearms from the armory that had been sanitized, and ammunition, and explosives, because this is South Africa, we don't just go with the small stuff, and then use these in robberies and various criminal activities. So it turns out that that's the 120 firearm batch of which these 4 firearms were derived. So the Norwood police station was instrumental in providing those 120 firearms to the criminals in 2014. The firearms were taken for ballistic testing, obviously to see what they could be linked to. They were sent back to Norwood, where they've been stolen or rented or I don't know, supplied to criminals again from the same police station. Please, guys, give us a break. We, the poor, long-suffering people of South Africa, deserve a hell of a lot better than what we're getting from the South African Police Service. Anyway, so these jokers, and I refer to them as jokers in the full knowledge of the disrespectful tone that is, these jokers propose to tell us, the law-abiding South African citizens, the law-abiding South African gun owners, how we should act, whilst they're living in a chaotic, I can't even really describe it. It's a lawless system. It's a system where they make the laws and they break the laws, and they are responsible for correcting themselves. How is this possible? This is madness.
Absolutely.
Anyway, so there'll be a lot more about that coming out today, I know, in the news, and over the weekend and over the weeks coming. The police are still investigating. The police minister yesterday said that he could not confirm
or deny
that those firearms had come from this batch. I can confirm it, they did. Mr. Tsele, stop being economical with the truth. The best thing the police minister could do at this stage is throw himself on his sword. We saw last week that Minister Mkhize, the health minister, took the honourable way out and threw himself on his sword. Minister Tsele, it's your turn. The sword waits for you. Yeah, what a week. What a time to be alive.
Yeah, we're still very worried about all of the amnesty firearms because it's coming out in the news.
We don't know. And we don't know that this is the only police station that we would be idiotic to imagine that this is the only police station this is happening at. We know it's not. We know about the DF or the officer at the police station in the Northern Cape that was robbed of all the firearms, whose boyfriend robbed all the firearms, stole all the firearms, without her knowing about it? Really?
Yeah.
Are we that gullible? Yeah, apparently we are. I don't know. So yeah, we don't know how many times this is repeating itself throughout the country. SAPS is just not the right people. You know, they're the most corrupt organ of one of the most corrupt states in the world. Really, we South African citizens, we the people, deserve a hell of a lot better.
Absolutely. Next week, can you
Okay,
tell us about what's happening in Cape Town?
Okay, fantastic. So we all got our submissions in to the on the act on the bill. We estimate there's between 220 and 250,000 submissions that went in. We don't imagine for a moment that the Civilian Secretary of Police is going to read all of those and respond to all of those and take those all into account, because the amount of work that would require is more than what the Secretary of Police has, the resources they have available.
The one report is 137 pages.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just and detailed stuff. I mean, the guys have gone to town on this legally, statistically. For them to unravel all of that is near impossible. But what next? Where do we go from here? And where we go from here, Parliament is on recess at the moment. Parliament comes back from recess on the 16th, so on Monday. Thursday is the first scheduled meeting of the Parliamentary Portfolio Committee on Police. We're going to be there. We in our numbers. There's a number of people flying down from Johannesburg. There's a number of people coming from all over the country to Cape Town. We have a protest. We have a demonstration planned in front of Parliament for that day, at which time we will hand over a statement and a list of demands. I'm coming back to, I don't want to phrase it as anything other than demands. It's time for us, the South African citizenry, to stand up and demand better from our elected representatives, to demand better from our government. So, and this is what we're going to do. We feel that we have a lot of support, a lot of popular support at this stage. The situation, the looting and the rioting in KZN and also in Gauteng and also in the Mpumalanga and various other places has all played into this. We are seeing an upwelling of support for the idea that law-abiding citizens are the guardians of democracy. Last week, Monday, the ANC's National Working Committee held a meeting. The transcript of that meeting includes a paragraph directly from the National Working Committee of the ANC, essentially saying that they would like to commend South African civilians and organized civil groups that stood up and defended our democracy. I mean, this is golden. I mean, if even they are seeing this, we, the people, are seeing this. We are South Africa. We, all of us, the ANC, the DA, the Freedom Front Plus, Action South Africa, the Action Party. We are South Africa, and we are seeing this. We're starting to see this through the same lens, perhaps for the first time ever. We're seeing the picture through the same lens, and we have to now start we have to start being active citizens. We have to start making our voice heard. We have to start telling the people that are sitting in Parliament, supposedly drafting legislation on our behalf, what we want.
Where do you want the Firearms Control Act to go to?
Okay, so well, I guess the dumpster's not an option, but I don't think it's feasible to imagine that we can scrap the Firearms Control Act. We need a piece of legislation, in the short term at least. We need a piece of legislation. We think that the current bill, the bill that's on the table, must vanish. It must disappear. It must be made to go away in its entirety. If there is any amendments that have to be brought to the current Firearms Control Act, They have to be done according to the constitutionally prescribed process, which these ones weren't, by the way. These ones were just dreamt up in secret and imposed on us. So talk to us, the stakeholders. There's the constitutional imperative to do exactly that, which the Secretary, the Police Ministry ignored. We have ideas. We know how to fix things. We know that there are several technical problems with the Firearms Control Act and with the Central Firearms Registry. We know how to fix those too. We've already offered to do that. We will very strongly advocate for removing the duplication from the system. We're already licensing the people, all the owners through the competency process. So license the owner and then register the firearm like you would do with a motor car, like you would do with any other controlled item except for firearms. We have the stupid dual licensing system, which doesn't work, becomes cumbersome, and it falls over all the time. Then we have another big problem, the SAPS. The SAPS are the worst possible government agency to be controlling the administration of the Firearms Control Act. They're not very good at it. They don't want to do it. They've told us this time and again.
We've seen the pictures.
We've seen the pictures. They don't have the skill set. They don't have the resources. For God's sake, put us all out of our misery and take it away from them and give it to Home Affairs or the Department of Trade and Industry.
Or a private institution.
Or a private institution. Let them have their control over it through a process of oversight. But for God's sake, for South Africa's sake, take it away from the SAPS.
Anything else, Paul?
I think that's kind of like a high point.
Is that the high point?
Yeah.
Thank you for everybody for viewing the program today. If you're not a member of GOSA yet, Gun Owners South Africa, please join us. We fight for your gun rights. Also think about joining GOSA Girls on Fire. And thank you very much. Have a good weekend. See you next week.
Cheers, guys. Cool, thank you. How long was that?
20 minutes, 15 minutes.
That's fine.